Top 10 Poorest Countries in Africa, 2025. Africa, despite its abundant natural resources and cultural richness, remains home to some of the world's poorest nations. Economic hardship across much of the continent is driven by a complex interplay of factors including conflict, corruption, underdeveloped infrastructure, low literacy rates, and reliance on subsistence agriculture. This video delves into the 10 poorest countries in Africa in 2025, based on GDP per capita and other socio-economic indicators. 10. Guinea. GDP per capita, $558. Population, 14 million. Capital, Conakry. Guinea is rich in natural resources, particularly bauxite, which accounts for much of its export earnings. However, wealth is unevenly distributed and does not benefit the broader population. The country struggles with poor infrastructure, limited access to healthcare and education, and chronic political instability. Corruption and mismanagement have hindered investment and progress, while rural communities remain trapped in extreme poverty. 9. Ethiopia. GDP per capita, $505. Population, 126 million. Capital, Addis Ababa. Although Ethiopia has shown remarkable growth in past decades, especially in manufacturing and construction, the economic gains haven't translated into poverty reduction for large parts of the population. Ethnic tensions and ongoing conflicts in regions like Tigray have severely disrupted development. Most people in rural Ethiopia still rely on subsistence farming, and basic services like electricity and clean water remain limited. 8. Democratic Republic of the Congo, DRC. GDP per capita, $484. Population, 102 million. Capital, Kinshasa. The DRC possesses vast mineral wealth, including cobalt and copper. However, decades of conflict, political instability, and exploitation have left the majority of Congolese living in poverty. Armed groups operate in many regions, deterring investment and humanitarian efforts. Education and healthcare systems are weak, and most infrastructure is in disrepair. 7. Madagascar. GDP per capita, $463. Population, 30 million. Capital, Antananarivo. Madagascar is known for its biodiversity and natural beauty, yet it is one of the poorest countries due to political crises, environmental degradation, and weak institutions. The economy is largely agricultural, leaving it vulnerable to cyclones and droughts. A majority of the population lives on less than $2 a day, with limited access to education and health services. 6. Liberia. GDP per capita, $454. Population, 5.5 million. Capital, Monrovia. After years of civil war and the 2014 Ebola outbreak, Liberia still struggles to rebuild its economy. Infrastructure is severely underdeveloped, corruption is widespread, and unemployment remains high. Most Liberians depend on informal jobs or subsistence farming. Access to clean water and healthcare remains limited, particularly outside the capital. 5. Niger. GDP per capita, $415. Population, 27 million. Capital, Niamey. Niger is landlocked and largely desert, facing constant threats from climate change, such as desertification and food insecurity. Its rapidly growing population strains already limited resources. Although uranium mining brings some revenue, the bulk of Niger's population lives in extreme poverty, with one of the highest child mortality rates in the world. 4. The Gambia. GDP per capita, $371. Population, 2.8 million. Capital, Banjul. Despite its small size and recent democratic progress, the Gambia remains economically fragile. The economy depends heavily on agriculture and tourism, both vulnerable sectors. Youth unemployment is a significant issue, and the country faces challenges such as underfunded public services, frequent power outages, and rural poverty. 3. Central African Republic, CAR. GDP per capita, $333. Population, 5.5 million. Capital, Bangui. CAR is rich in diamonds, gold, and timber, but rampant conflict and political instability have ravaged its economy. Armed groups control large swaths of the country, undermining governance and access to services. Health and education infrastructure is almost non-existent in many areas, and humanitarian crises persist due to violence and displacement. 2. Burundi. GDP per capita, $267. Population, 13 million. Capital, Gitega. Burundi is a small, densely populated country plagued by political repression, land scarcity, and recurring food crises. The country is heavily reliant on agriculture, but limited land, poor yields, and climate change make food security a major concern. Education and healthcare are severely under-resourced, and political tensions hinder reform. 1. South Sudan, poorest country in Africa. GDP per capita, $226. Population, 11 million. Capital, Juba. South Sudan, the world's youngest country, has been engulfed in conflict almost since its independence in 2011. Oil is the backbone of its economy, but civil war, corruption, and a lack of diversification have prevented economic development. Infrastructure is virtually non-existent outside urban areas. Famine, mass displacement, and violence have created one of the worst humanitarian crises on the continent. Africa's poorest countries face complex and deeply entrenched issues that require not just local solutions, but coordinated international support. Economic recovery and poverty reduction depend on peace, political reform, better infrastructure, access to education and healthcare, and sustainable development. While each of these nations has unique challenges, they all share one thing: the resilience and strength of their people in the face of adversity.